Let's start with limit as x approaches 4 of 4x minus x squared over 2 minus root x. If I plug in 4 for top and bottom, I'm going to get 0 over 0. In this case, I want to multiply the top and the bottom by the conjugate of the denominator. Because now I'm going to have limit as x approaches 4 of 4x minus x squared times 2 plus root x over 4 minus x. I'm going to go one step further and I'm going to factor the 4x minus x squared as limit x approaches 4. I can pull out an x and I'm left with 4 minus x times 2 plus root x all over 4 minus x. The top and the bottom has a factor of 4 minus x, so I can eliminate that. And now I could just plug in x equals 4 to get 4 times 2 plus root 4. 2 plus root 4 is 2 plus 2. That's 4. Multiplied by 4, that gives us 16. So my limit is 16. Moving on, let's try limit as x approaches 1 of x minus 1 over square root x plus 3 minus 2. If I plug in x equals 1, I get 0 over 0. So just like the last problem, I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by its conjugate. Whenever we multiply by the conjugate, you always want to leave one of them the same. So the bottom is going to simplify very nicely, but the top you should leave the same in this case. Because usually what's going to happen is it's going to cancel out nicely with the bottom. So let's see. On the bottom we basically have a minus b times a plus b. That's a difference of two squares, so that's a squared minus b squared. Let's rewrite this and let's simplify the denominator. So notice in the denominator I have x plus 3 minus 4. That simplifies to x minus 1. I can cancel out the x minus 1's. And now I can plug in x equals 1 to get root 4 plus 2. And my final answer is 4. Let's try a little more difficult problem next. I'm given the limit as x approaches negative 1 of square root x squared plus 8 minus 3 all over x plus 1. If I plug in x equals negative 1, I get 0 over 0. So just like we've been doing, we want to multiply top and bottom by the conjugate. So it'll be square root x squared plus 8 plus 3. Now the top, we leave it the same. Oh, I'm sorry, not the same. The bottom we leave the same. The top, we have a minus b times a plus b. So it's a squared minus b squared. And we'll just keep the bottom the same. Because eventually it's going to cancel out with the top. And now at the top we have x squared plus 8 minus 9, which the 8 minus 9 gives us negative 1, all over x plus 1 times square root x squared plus 8 plus 3. I can factor out the top as x minus 1, x plus 1, and on the bottom I have x plus 1 times the square root of x squared plus 8 plus 3. Notice the top and the bottom both have an x plus 1 factor. That goes away. And now I could just plug in negative 1 in for x. I have negative 1 minus 1 at the top. That'll be negative 2. On the bottom, I have negative 1 squared, which is 1, plus 8 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3, plus 3 is 6. So my limit is negative 1/3. Let's try a similar one. We have limit as x approaches 2 of square root x squared plus 12 minus 4 over x minus 2. If I plug in x equals 2, I'm going to get 0 over 0. So that means I better multiply the top and the bottom by the conjugate of the top. So that will be x squared plus 12, square root of that, plus 4. I'm going to then multiply, so I have a difference of 2 squares at the top. That's going to leave me with x squared plus 12 minus 16 over x minus 2 times square root x squared plus 12 and then plus 4. The top could still be simplified. We have 12 minus 16 there. So that would be just negative 4 all over x minus 2 times the square root of x squared plus 12 plus 4. X squared minus 4 can be broken up into x minus 2, x plus 2, all over x minus 2 times the square root of x squared plus 12 plus 4. Top and bottom have a factor of x minus 2. That goes away. I can plug in x equals 2. So 2 plus 2 is 4. And at the bottom I have 2 squared is 4, plus 12 is 16. Square root of 16 is 4. Added to the other 4 gives us 8. So my limit is 1/2. Okay. Now what happens if we have the square root at the bottom? So a similar problem, but now the square root is on the bottom. So limit as x approaches negative 2 of x plus 2 all over square root x squared plus 5 minus 3. I plug in negative 2 and I get 0 over 0. I'm going to multiply top and bottom by the conjugate. So here the square root is on the bottom, so I'm going to multiply by that conjugate. It will be square root x squared plus 5 plus 3. Let's do that to the top. The limit x approaches negative 2. I'm going to leave the top the same because eventually that's going to cancel out with the bottom. The bottom I have a difference of 2 squares, so the square root x squared plus 5 will become x squared plus 5, and then we're going to have minus 9. I can simplify the bottom further because I have 5 minus 9, that's negative 4. Let's write this out. So it's x squared minus 4 at the bottom. And now I can simplify that even further. x squared minus 4 will give me x plus 2, x minus 2. And now finally we have a factor that could cancel. The x plus 2's will go away. And now I'm left, I can plug in negative 2. So we have square root negative 2 squared plus 5. Add that to 3. And I get negative 2 minus 2 at the bottom. So we'll have square root of 9 is 3 plus 3 over negative 4. So that's 6 over negative 4, which is negative 3 halves. So my limit is negative 3 halves.